My name is Hannah Waller, and today I'll be discussing how deforestation affects climate change negatively. So my group's topic is the effects of land use change on climate change, and my subtopic is deforestation, which I'll be discussing in this presentation. So the first article I had come across that was very relevant was titled "Large-Scale Tropical Deforestation Drives Extreme Warming." So deforestation, as we know, is when you clear a large area of trees in an environment. Deforestation is a massive issue in agriculture. However, it is also a problem when it comes to climate change, which many people are still learning. So this issue causes a massive issue when it comes to the effect of things such as temperature in the area where the land is cleared. There have been 3.5 million kilometers of global forest coverage, mainly in the tropics, that have been lost or depleted since 2000 alone. So this doesn't even count for before 2000, but due to urbanization and other factors, it has been the most since 2000. This tropical deforestation threatens the largest land-based carbon pools and most biodiverse ecosystems on Earth. Deforestation in these tropics will affect the communities around them sooner than climate change. However, once deforestation hits, climate change will come in soon because of the effects, causing devastation for all of the surrounding communities. So deforestation hits, and then right on top of that, climate change hits, just causing catastrophe across the entire area. So this experiment in the article uses 1 kilometer squared resolution data derived from MODIS Aqua satellites to calculate the daytime temperatures of certain areas. These then create grid cells that they use to measure the temperature. They then find when the area observed are particularly higher than average, and these grid cells are then used to measure the warming of a particular area, where they then compare the amount of deforestation that occurred during the spike in temperatures. So they're basically finding out what areas had higher than normal temperatures and seeing if deforestation occurred in that area. So in Asia, they discovered that of all the grid cells that had warmed more than 5 degrees Celsius from 2003 to 2018, 65% of them experienced deforestation. They then looked at the Amazon, and 60% of the cells warmed also experienced deforestation. So this is more than half. So this isn't really coincidence. Majority of the land that is spiking in temperature has suffered from deforestation. So this warming is equal to more than a century of greenhouse gas emissions. The warming caused by deforestation, as well as greenhouse gas emissions, could cause uninhabitable zones in the tropics for all species. Some of these temperature increases associated with deforestation can be as high as 10 degrees Celsius increase. As stated previously, these increases can be worse with greenhouse gas emissions and on a much shorter time scale as well. So the impact of land use change on climate change is very relevant, as this article goes over. Deforestation is one of the biggest types of land use changes, but is only one of them. This land use change alone causes massive changes with the other subtopics that the group will discuss will impact the way our planet is shaped in the future. So far, the impacts are not positive and are only making global warming worse. So the next article I came across is a time series analysis of urbanization-induced land use and land cover change and its impact on land surface temperature with land site imagery. So there's a closely linked relationship between urbanization and thermal characteristics, as the study shows, meaning that there is a very close linked relationship between urbanization and rising in temperature. So this study uses images from TMEMT Plus from the 1980s to 2011 to link these two topics together. So urbanization involves clearing land and making it more urban, meaning deforestation. So in order to make land more urban, they have to clear out trees and things like that, deforestation, to make room for buildings, houses, roads, etc. This not only contributes to greenhouse gas emissions, but also rising temperatures. This shows how land use change, in this case, deforestation for urbanization, relates to climate change. And then this graph over here just shows how much of the particular area studied in this article is affected by urbanization. So deforestation-induced climate change effects of spatial scale. So according to this article, deforestation is associated with increased CO2 levels and alterations to the surface energy. Previous studies indicate that deforestation effects on temperature have to do with latitude. High latitude means cooling and low latitude means heating, according to the article. This study uses a global climate model that examined how removing 5% and 10% of forested areas affect surface area temperatures. They learned that the more trees removed, the lower the mean temperature as well as the drier the areas got. So this relates to the topic I'm discussing because it shows an alternative to what most articles say, that deforestation corresponds with higher temperatures, but this article says the opposite. It gives an insight to a different study and viewpoint on deforestation in regards to climate change. So this is just a graph here that shows like the different average global CO2 concentrations for high, mid, and low latitude deforestation. And then as you can see, it's just showing that there's actually a decrease in temperature. However, it's a lot drier in the area. So it's cooler but drier. And like I said, most articles are saying the complete opposite. They're saying that deforestation leads to higher temperatures. So this is kind of just like an alternate viewpoint. So you can kind of read both and like see what you believe. However, I will note that the majority of the articles that I found were saying rising temperatures. This is one of the only ones I found that said anything about lowering temperatures. So I just wanted to put that out there because the majority definitely says an increase in temperature. So the next article is the effects of climate and land use change. So this article goes over the negative impacts of climate change and deforestation in regards to increasing fire frequencies and in turn harming the Amazon. So this topic is not understood as well as it should be. However, the study tries to help the issue and bring light to this link. The study uses maximum entropy method. They combined regional land use projections and climate data and compared this with the fire currents at the time. They found that fragmentation in an environment causes a 73.2% increase in fire relative probability. This means that if trees were cut down, making the area more fragmented, then it would be more likely for a fire to occur. This relates to my topic because it shows that deforestation affects climate change, which in turn causes fires to become more common. This then destroys ecosystems and decreases biodiversity. It proves that land use change does in fact make climate change worse. So this little graph that I had found, and it just shows how climate change does in fact make wildfires more common and more intense. However, if we think about it in terms of my subtopic, deforestation, of course, worsens climate change. It increases climate change, increases temperatures. This in turn is going to affect wildfires by making them even more worse, more intense, more frequent. So that's just what this little graph shows. And then these are just my references for the presentation.